That's smart.
How we doing, guys? Obviously here we've had a few days in between Saturday's game at Michigan State and tomorrow night's game against Michigan. We started by taking a day off there, try to get physically, mentally refreshed a little bit, rejuvenated. I did think that we really competed at a high level in the game on Saturday. I thought we had guys play a lot of minutes. Guys really gave a lot of themselves. I loved our competitive toughness. Are we able to continue to do that? I try to tell them it's not a guarantee. You do it one time, it doesn't mean anything. You've got to muster that back up again and be consistent with it. So we took Sunday, took the day off after the game, and then obviously we've had a few days here to focus. First day we focused really on us exclusively. We do that normally. Worry about what we need to get better at. I thought we had a lot of execution miscues in the game at Michigan State that we needed to clean up. I thought at times our effort and our toughness was exceptional and allowed us to kind of overcome some of those mistakes. So we took a look at those, and then obviously the last 2 days here, yesterday and today, our focus has been on Michigan and making sure that we're prepared and that we're ready to go tomorrow night. Thought we had a great practice, really 2 good practices back-to-back here. I'm confident we'll have another good one here this afternoon. I told those guys the importance of honoring the process, and I thought that we prepared really well leading into the last game, that we need to have some maturity after a quality win over the weekend and show that we have experience on our team, leadership on our team, be mature, and understand that Thursday is a completely different game. What can we learn from the Michigan State game? How do we get better? And that we must have great concentration and focus with our preparation leading into tomorrow night's game. So, and they've done that. Egwu obviously is a terrific leader. Abrams helps in that regard, as I've mentioned, from a little bit different perspective and role than previous. But those 2 guys in particular, I think, do a really good job of being the voice and being the messenger. So I like our mindset. But again, it tips at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, and we've got to be ready to go physically, mentally. We've got to play with toughness. We've got to play together, and we've got to execute better. Hopefully we will execute some of the details of the things that we've worked on the last 2 or 3 days to make our team better, a little bit better tomorrow night than what we did over the weekend. Questions?
John, they've had injuries as you have, and
sure.
You guys have kind of reinvented yourselves a little bit. Can you just talk about how they've gone about it without Karras and without Wall?
Yeah, obviously it's interesting. The longer you're in it, Tup, I think, you feel, for me, I feel for the kids when they get injured. I don't wish that upon anybody. I'm a little bit different with that. I mean, maybe earlier on in my career, you see a guy injured and you think that's hey, that's a positive for your team, having maybe a better chance to win or be more competitive. But as I've went through it myself now a few times, dating back to Ohio, and now certainly at a different level with it this year, I think I appreciate it more. I certainly respect the job that they've done, and certainly can try the best I can to feel those kids' pain. I don't like it for any kid to be put in that situation, but it happens. It's part of sports, part of basketball. I do think that we're different than when we played them the first time, and I think I certainly don't want to speak for Coach Beeline, but he would probably say they're a lot different as well, would be my guess. And they've tried to adapt and adjust, and I think they've done a really good job to be competitive and find ways to win games. And they've got a winning culture there. Those kids are used to winning and competing and executing, and I have great respect for what they do. We've tried to do the same thing, as you alluded to, on our end a little bit with some of the change we've had and injuries and so forth.
John, what is it about the culture you've built that, again, your team getting better at this time of the year?
Well, I think a lot of it starts with leadership inside your locker room, and I think that Egwu and Abrams in particular, certainly not that other guys don't lead at all. They do. There's times where every guy on our team has to be a great leader, and there's times where they have to be a great follower. And that's true even of Nana and Tracy, and they would tell you that. But I think leadership in our locker room is really good. Jeremy, they know we're about and how we want to do things. You know, they echo those things, and I think they feel those things and absorb those things and have done that well over the 3 years. It's not something that you do by snapping your fingers or in one season or one day, or, you know, it happens over time a little bit. And I do like that for sure. After, you know, here we are sitting in year 3, I like where that's at, and I think our guys feel very confident in our culture and what we're about and where we're going. So that part's good. But I think it starts with them, and then I have a great staff, you know, a great support staff. I talk all the time about it takes a village. You know, I can't be everywhere all the time as a leader of the program, so I also have to be a good follower at times and a good leader at times, as do the assistant coaches and Paul Schmidt and Bass and the nutritionist. And, you know, we've got so many people involved, but I think the one thing that we've been able to do is get everybody on the same page. You know, everybody understands what we expect. Everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction, and so they deserve a lot of credit as well. And I just think if you keep doing that every day, day after day after day, you just keep swinging that hammer, you know, at the end of the day, at some point in time, the rock will crack.
A couple of weeks ago, you said maybe you couldn't sense the momentum was building towards a good February, that the consistency wasn't there. Do you kind of feel the momentum coming now?
Sure. Yeah, I think we're playing better. I think we're a little bit more consistent with our effort and our toughness. You know, but we also know if we don't have the right mindset, we don't prepare the right way, we don't concentrate, we don't communicate, we're not connected, all those little things, Jim, if we don't do those things, then, you know, we don't play as well. We've got to bring those things to the table every single day. To do that takes great mental toughness. It does. And I do think we've made a lot of strides with that with this team. I think it's a big reason why we're playing well, but I think we can play better. I mentioned the execution stuff the other day. You know, I thought our execution, you know, collectively, offensively, defensively, was a little bit above average the other day. Like C+ is what I gave them. Now, I'm a tough critic. I thought our effort and our toughness and some of those things were really exceptional. But we'd like to get both of those working in concert. So we still think we have a ceiling and that we can improve.
Nana plays almost the entire game at Michigan State. You had multiple guys, 37+ minutes. Is that realistic for those guys to play that much, or would you like to see more of that?
They've done it. You know, they've not had any excuses, and they've really competed. I've been on them to not have excuses. I thought the other day was maybe the best job they've done of, you know, playing as hard early in the game, and at the end of the game, you could tell very little difference. You know, I thought they really willed their way a little bit and, you know, kind of fought through some of those things. But you're right, I mentioned it. It's hard to do that if you're anybody, to play both ends with that type of effort, that type of toughness and togetherness. I mentioned in particular with Nana at 6'11", 250 pounds, how rare that is. But the other guy, there's a lot of other guys on our team that have done that as well. So, you know, I think, you know, they've done it, and hopefully they can continue to do it. Whatever they're asked, that they're able to do that. You know, I think, you know, right now I keep telling them I'm not going to give you anything that you're not able to do. Trust me, you can do it. You know, mind over matter a little bit. And those guys have done a pretty good job of that here recently.
Has there been a change in status of Bryce and Cosby?
No, both guys indefinitely suspended.
How does, whenever they do come out, how does practice help? I mean, how much does practice
I
help?
think it
How
helps.
chemistry?
That's a great question. I think it helps. For sure, it helps conditioning. You know, you can do, Jeremy, and we've done it, you know, elliptical, cardio, like I said earlier this week, you know, all the different things you're doing to try to stay in shape, but that's different than playing. So I think practice is huge, you know, for those guys. You know, being able in particular to get to their second wind, being able to play for long periods of time, that's different than running a wind sprint or biking or, you know, being on a treadmill, or that's a different deal. So I think it helps a great deal.
You mentioned the last time you played Michigan, you're a different team now. Aside from the obvious personnel changes, what is different?
Well, I think, you know, I think we execute better. I think we're a little bit mentally tougher. You know, we've been through an awful lot as a team. I think our leadership and our followership has been good. You know, so I think a lot of those intangible things have been honed a little bit. You know, iron sharpens iron, so to speak. I think that's happened a little bit over the course of the season because of the attitudes that our guys have had really from start to finish being, next man up, no excuses. I think that has really, made us a better ball club.
And you know who Aubrey Dawkins is?
Yeah, no question, and he's been great. Dawkins has been great, even obviously kind of jump-started in our game, and then he's played very, very well after. I think he's an elite level shot maker. He's got great size, and you can just see him, as their guys typically do, continuing to get better.
Game at Breslin seemed like Kendrick was back really for the first time, mentally and physically 100% this year. Showed no tentativeness. Do you think that's the knee? He's finally mentally confident in his knee. What would you agree with any of that?
I think Rob's question was about Ken. I think Kendrick's been back for longer than just over the weekend, but I do think that early on in the year, Rob, there's no question that you wonder, like, hey, you missed the summer training, you missed part of the preseason. There was no question about it. There was some time where he needed to get acclimated, cardio, confidence in the knee, being aggressive, balancing that with what we're trying to do as a team and how we're executing and finding his niche and all that. I do think it took some time. I think he's been like he was this past weekend for a while now, and I think he's playing at a really, really high level.
How do you foresee roles changing when those guys do eventually come back?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Obviously, I've always said, Jeremy, you add or delete one player from a team or from a rotation, there's a ripple effect. I just believe, in my opinion, that's true of any team. So I think at this point, with the way that we played, certainly, and that we're getting better, and that our slope seems to be going that way, I think it's a two-way street. I think our team, I'm sure, will look forward to having those guys back at some point, and then at the same time, those guys also have to be willing to adjust to where the team's at right now, if that makes any sense, because the team's at a different place than where it was maybe when they were injured or suspended. So I do think it's the responsibility of those guys, our team, our staff, to all communicate and know the expectations of what we expect and how we're going to try to fit that puzzle piece together. But it's not like as simple as, my son's 5, he's got those puzzles where there's like 10 pieces, they're like monster puzzles. And then Connor's 9, and he has ones that are like 1,000 pieces. He graduated to 9 years old, so his puzzles are a little bit more complicated, I don't think it's as easy as the 10-piece puzzle. I don't think it's ever that easy, but it's our job to try to figure that out.
And again, does practice gel them a little bit before they?
I think it helps, for sure. I thought your question earlier was a great one. Yeah, I think practice helps for sure. Not only conditioning, but gelling, to use your word, with the team, connecting, I think it helps in a lot of ways.
You said that practices were really good the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Were they a part of that, those two players?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Playing
Over the
up to a
course,
level
the
that you
time
think
in between the Michigan State game and today, those guys have practiced.
Colbert's given you about 10 minutes the last 3 games. How do you assess how he's playing?
Better. And actually, I think it's interesting because I think the way he's played in those 3 games has actually helped him practice better. I think he's practiced really well the last couple days, and that maybe is that, we talk all the time, Clark Kellogg used to say to me, your confidence ultimately, to get that at the highest level, is achieved how you play in the game. So I think he's played well in the game, or games now, consecutively, 3 in a row, and because of that, he has a different look about him in practice. He's playing a lot harder, more consistently. He's competing better. He's more vocal. So that's good. I'm happy. I'm happy for him. He's starting to come into his own a little bit.
Coach, do you have any dealings with Dean Smith or Tark, and just any comments on that?
Not any more than what I've said previously during the week. I mean, if I'm repetitive, I apologize. But, obviously I was at North Carolina State 96-97. Jim was his last year as the head coach at North Carolina. We played them 3 times. They beat us in the ACC tournament championship game that year when I was at NC State. And obviously you just think about, how well they executed, how talented they were. Obviously they were well coached. It was a privilege to compete against them. At that point I was 20-some years old and had hair and more like a mullet when I look back at those pictures, which is sort of embarrassing. But to have a chance to do that, that's kind of rare air. I look back on it now and probably appreciate it even more now. We have a drill in practice. I said this early in the week called Carolina drill. If you go to high school practices, college practices, I'm sure that's common. Whether it's the number break or 4 corners that he initiated, which some people will debate and say that's how the shot clock came about. I mean, I think when I think of him, I think of the word innovator. That's the word I think of. But I think the interesting thing, if you follow it this week, is all the outside of that, the basketball piece, the X's and O's, all the different lives he's touched and impacted. And I think at the end of the day, that's always the ultimate legacy about a person. And obviously he had the best of both worlds there.
Can I follow up about Kendrick? If he has been back for a while, there was something different about his game at Michigan State, which is that he was more aggressive at attacking the basket rather than shooting. So is that a function of him recognizing defenses and taking what they give to him?
Yeah, I think so, Rob. I mean, I think he's pretty good. He takes what's there. As I've said before, I've used the phrase with Kendrick, he plays the game the right way. I mean, he does. He plays to win. He competes. He's aggressive, and we want him aggressive, but he'll make the pass if that's what's needed. He'll defend if that's what's needed. He'll run down a 1-on-0 and pin the ball in the glass if that's what's needed. I mean, he just plays. I love coaching him because of that. He's always on to that next play. He's extremely, extremely mentally tough.
About Michigan, you mentioned a couple of players, but how have they changed? What's he adjusted personnel-wise?
Obviously they still run great offense. I mean, their offense is, offensive that they run, their execution, their screening, their cutting, their spacing, their ability to make threes. Different guys on their team are continuing to get better with the opportunity that they've earned and or received due to roster change, injuries, etc. A little bit like our roster and some of our guys have. Defensively, they're still playing the same 2 or 3 defenses. They have a system. They've wrinkled it a little bit here and there. They've got some new things offensively, and they've done percentage of what they play one defense versus another might have changed a little bit. You can tell they have a way in which they believe in doing things, and they stick to that.
Anything on the phone lines for Coach? Shannon or Steve? Anything? Yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like that they're expecting a pretty lively atmosphere tomorrow. Just wondering if you could speak to just what you've gotten at home.
So, I certainly by no means have tried to disrespect the first 2 years because I love our fans and they've been great. We've had some great crowds and they're a huge part of the home court advantage we have here at the State Farm Center. But I said on my radio show Monday night, I think our fans have really appreciated everything that we've been through, the toughness that our guys have displayed, and they've been a huge part of it, Shannon. It's almost like they felt that they needed to help us and carry us a little bit, and we've needed them, and they've came through big time. So obviously tomorrow night, I always tell the players, once you've tasted filet mignon, for some reason the McDonald's double cheeseburger doesn't taste quite as good anymore. We've had that type of filet mignon treatment by our fans all year long here at home, and hopefully we have, and it sounds like we're going to have that type of environment, again tomorrow night. We can't thank them enough for that. I know I appreciate them, and so do the players. Sure.
Everybody tries to build for the home stretch. You talked recently about finishing strong, how you did last year. That end stage of the season. Have we seen the start of that, or has that not sort of been revealed yet?
Well, I sure hope so. I think we've played better, more consistent with the standards we're trying to hit, both offensively and defensively. I think we're playing with a little bit more toughness. But again, it's a conscious choice you have to make in your mind and in your heart to play that way every day. And have we arrived yet? Are we there yet with that, Steve? That remains to be seen. That's the challenge. I've challenged them with that. They've shown that they're capable. But you're right, it is February, and I would hope that through some of the success we've had here recently, that they would understand why as much as anything. You know, that they've honored the process here lately, I think, at a much higher level in terms of preparation, and their mental toughness has been better. I think we've played harder for longer periods of time. And when you do those things, and that gives you a chance. There's no guarantees, but it gives you a chance to reach your potential. So that's what we want. We want this team to reach its potential. I think we're closer certainly today than we have been at any point during the season. You know, do we continue to move forward? That's the plan. But, you know, that still remains to be seen.
Guessing you don't spend countless hours doing bracketology, but Illinois is in a good spot according to the experts. The listed fields at this point, Illinois is in, in the various ones of those. Does that matter to you being in versus out right now? Is that something you would consider talking about with players and stuff like that?
No, but I'd be foolish to think that those guys, obviously, they're on the internet, they're on their iPads, they're on their phones, they probably are aware of it, but they know me better than that. We're going to honor the process. Obviously when those brackets count is on Selection Sunday. That's when they count, So for us, we can't control that. It's not going to get here any sooner or later whether we try to make that happen or not. What we can control is honoring the process, getting better every day, making sure we understand how and why we play well, and continuing to control those things. Sure.
All right, I'm going to wrap that up now because Coach has to still do rebounders too, along with
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.